Previously on Autistic Critic. Plenty of evil animals on this list get personality. DreamWorks villains will banish, enslave, and/or slaughter massive groups of people while constantly driving the narrative. It's a great example of doing a lot with a little. Aardman was onto something with their first cinematic villain.
What will you have after 500 years?
The last great Kung Fu Panda movie has the series' last great villain. What a fascinating coincidence. While Kung Fu Panda 5 hasn't been greenlit as of the time I wrote this ranking, I see no reason why my observation won't stay the case for the foreseeable future. Kai serves his role as a threat decently well. He takes chi from Kung Fu masters, turning them into orbs and occasionally zombies. This is the first we've heard of chi in these movies, so not only do we have to adjust to this concept, but I don't feel super enlightened as a newcomer to it. I have more time to comprehend the Force. It's definitely a me problem, but I can live with that, because Kai is super epic. That's not even mentioning how hard the string music when he's swinging his chained swords goes. I have to give him credit for expanding the lore of this universe. Until this movie, we never knew the full extent of the Wuxi fingerhold. As a kid, I thought it killed Tai Lung, and in actuality, it technically did. Thanks to Kai, we now know it only works on mortals and not spirit warriors. But that doesn't stop him from returning to the spirit realm, thanks to Poe's loophole. The running gag of no one hearing about him reminds me of Star-Lord's lack of fame, and his reaction to being acknowledged by Poe cracks me up.
Yes! Finally! Thank you! Almost makes me want to spare your life.
Sure, it's a consequence of Oogway erasing him from the mortal world's history, but this setback for him is always funny. Plus, J.K. Simmons is having the time of his life as this character, balancing comedic moments here and there with sheer intimidation. You don't seem to understand. Chi isn't yours to take. While Kai isn't the most complex Kung Fu Panda villain, he slays in his own right. Now it's a party. Petey the cat is my favorite Dogman character. At first, I wasn't sure whether to include him at all because he's a different villain than most of the villains we've seen. A redeemable type. Once I settled on including him, it was tricky to pinpoint where to rank him. He's repeatedly fighting Dogman throughout the movie, but he isn't the threat our hero has to take down in the climax. It's Flippy, a telekinetic fish that just came back from the dead. Plus, he's following Petey's programming to destroy all do-gooders until Lil Petey breaks through to him. On the one hand, just because the Incredibles are fighting the Omnidroid in the final act doesn't mean Syndrome isn't the main villain of that movie. On the other hand, Petey's redemption feels earned, but I didn't want that to skew his placement too much. Pete Davidson is the cat meow in this movie. To say he stole the show would be an understatement. This is peak casting, just like Nick Kroll as Professor Poopy Pants. It's always nice when an entertainingly cynical side character comes out of a kid's movie. Those are usually the highlights for me. There's about a million awesome inflections and line deliveries that stick out in my head. I love the running gag where he pays his ex-butler anything but money, and seriously, his crash outs crack me up, thanks in no small part to the animation and voice acting. Petey is just a joy to watch from beginning to end. He has a tragic backstory of being abandoned by his father, and he continues that chain when he can't handle his young clone anymore. Going on from there, Lil Petey's parentage is a game of hot potato. As he and Dogman try to raise him, Lil Petey brings his grandfather to Petey, and the movie interestingly doesn't have them make amends. My friend thought this was a plot hole, but I pointed out that life can be like that. Some people don't reconcile with neglectful and/or abusive parents and then are at peace when they realize it's not worth it. At the end, he agrees to share custody of little Petey with Dogman. It's refreshing to see a DreamWorks movie that treats its antagonist this sympathetically and redeems them. I know I said Humpty Dumpty's redemption arc wasn't genuine or earned, but this is different. Humpty ruined his own life and schemed to get revenge on Puss. Petey was shaped by having a deadbeat father. I think the placement is appropriate because calling him the best DreamWorks villain would be like calling Bowler Hat Guy the greatest Disney villain. Both are great comedic antagonists with an unexpected tragic side, but at some point, you'll understand what makes the most gleefully irredeemable characters the cream of the studio's villain crop. One more thing. I don't really think Petey's a villain, I just thought it made more sense to have him here.
I believe someone phoned about an animal problem. The solution is standing before you.
Captain DuBois is the highlight of Madagascar 3. This unhinged animal control officer is hysterical, cartoonish, and terrifying in equal measure. This isn't just a job for her, it's a passion. This lady strangled a parrot at age 7. That's genuinely ruthless. That shot where she emerges from a fiery explosion goes hard. She slaps the guy that called her into this chase. When the Central Park Zoo thinks she brought Alex back, they give her $1 million check, which she immediately rips. Her fixation on getting Alex's head doesn't get more obvious than that. She is absurdly powerful for a human being, even by Madagascar standards. DuBois can track, heal through operatic singing, smash through walls, leap across rooftops and do a somersault, skate on fishy oil slicks, and even produce a saw out of nothing. That last trick is on another level. She's got hammer space! Her relentlessness makes it so satisfying anytime the animals get the drop on her. Even as a kid, I perked up at the poetry of the movie's final scene. She and her henchmen are in the same boat as the gang in the first movie. Literally, because they're all in crates being shipped to Madagascar. It's a solid comeuppance and bookend for the trilogy. Unyielding, sharp, and despicable, DuBois is the greatest Madagascar villain.
You're shorter than I expected.
I've seen Lord Farquaad pop up on a lot of best DreamWorks villains lists. As iconic as he is, he has little screen time over the course of this movie, but his shadow looms large over the narrative. He is responsible for the fairy tale creatures showing up in Shrek's swamp, which drives the ogre and donkey to go to Duloc to give him a piece of his mind. He sends Shrek to rescue Fiona in exchange for kicking all the fairy tale creatures off the swamp. Also, he can marry her to become king. Then he just sits back until Shrek thinks Fiona and Donkey are talking negatively about him. It's great how one of the first actions he takes in the entire movie is mocking a prisoner by playing with his severed legs and reciting a nursery rhyme to diss him. What other movie villain have you seen do that? Even though it's Gingy he's interrogating, thereby making these actions more digestible. Get it? This is sick, hilarious, iconic, and incredible all at once.
If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
As bigoted as he is, he's not above seeing the strengths in things, which we get to see when Shrek beats up all the knights trying to kill him and Farquaad declares him champion of the tournament. He changed his mind frequently in that situation, but everything he did there made complete sense. On top of that, a generic villain would have gone back on a deal made with a hero, but he holds up his end. He probably did it so Shrek won't ever bother him again, but honoring the deal didn't matter anyway since Shrek still crashed his wedding and Dragon ate him. The thing that really sticks out to me about this guy is that the sequels reveal Shrek unintentionally made enemies through this one deal and the quest that was part of it. In fact, his influence was so absolute that even though his subjects applauded upon his demise, Duloc became creepy and abandoned. This is why Scared Shrekless should be required viewing for all Shrek fans. So yeah, I couldn't deny Farquaad a spot close to the top 10. Although he had a short list of actions, he's definitely not forgettable. This short king, this short lord is in a perfect place.
Alpha Twin! Alpha Twin!
You ever wonder what it would be like if Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell were animated pop stars who kidnapped musicians and stole their talent to become famous? Well, here you go. For the purposes of this list, I wasn't sure whether to count Velvet alone as the main villain of Trolls Band Together because she has to share the spotlight with her softy brother Veneer, who she manipulates so they can gain fame. In spite of his morals and redemption arc, I came to the conclusion that these two are a package deal. The twins have great funny moments throughout the film. I love the Family Guy cutaways where each sibling has a different interpretation of their childhood. Veneers makes me laugh out loud. Their interview is a good bit. Even though taking them down and rescuing their power source, Floyd, is the goal of the movie, it's hard not to enjoy their music. I actually saw Veneer's voice actor Andrew Rannells and Josh Gad perform Gutenberg on Broadway in 2023. Rannells makes me perk up anytime I find him in something, and the same is true for Trolls Band Together. I appreciate what the Rubber Hose Twins dynamics say about Poppy and Branch's relationships with siblings. Velvet spends the movie pressuring Veneer to conform to her way of thinking. He's afraid to stand up to her until the big moment where he publicly confesses everything about the situation, and he's perfectly fine with going to prison with her. I certainly have a lot to say about Veneer in particular, but I didn't want to neglect Velvet either. They really work for what the movie needs. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Trolls Band Together is very funny and you should watch it. Otherwise, you're missing out on one of DreamWorks' best comedic villain duos.
You took everything away from me, you rats!
Huzzah! A fiend of quality! Flushed Away is by far my favorite Aardman film, and for a multitude of reasons. It's the rogues who truly steal the spotlight. I'm endlessly entertained by the antics of Spike, Whitey, and of course, Le Frog. But for the purposes of this discussion, I must give due attention to their ringleader, the Toad. Sir Ian McKellen delivers an amusing, divertingly pompous vocal performance, one that utterly commands the screen. I've always been particularly fond of the moment where he says,
"You incompetent cheese eaters!"
Simply incredible dialogue. One of the scenes that always has me in stitches is when he attempts to speak to Rita via a mobile phone that's attached to a mime frog who repeatedly breaks his boss's character. The frequent disconnect between these two entities is nothing short of hysterical, and don't even get me started on his exchanges with Le Frog. They're an utter treat. Toad's hatred of rats makes sense. He was the cherished pet of Prince Charles until he was cast aside by the young royal in favor of a rat he got on his birthday, and poor Toad was flushed away. That's the name of the movie. From then on, he became a crime boss to make up for his loss of importance. Frankly, if I were in his position, I'd have made every effort to return up top, sneak back into Buckingham Palace, and dispatch the rodent interloper myself. Granted, the journey back might be a challenge, but that last bit, easy peasy. As for his grand scheme, it's fiendishly clever. His plan is to open a floodgate during the FIFA World Cup final, waiting for the humans up top to use the loo at halftime, thus unleashing a tidal wave that will wipe out the entire rat population. Now, that's hardly your run-of-the-mill evil plot, is it? I was gobsmacked when I first heard it, though to be fair, I was only 4 at the time. In the trio of DreamWorks Aardman villains, the Toad is poised up top, even if he lives below them.